Hello and welcome everybody. Hopefully people will be entering the room in a second. I'm going to imagine very, very quickly. Let me check and make sure people are actually here. Yeah? Oh, cool. Okay. People are here. That's good. I'm seeing comments. That's very positive. All right. So as people are trickling in, I'm actually going to start off this particular webinar with some questions. So I'm going to start off with a couple common questions I got on social media, and then I will actually take some of your questions. I have one of my assistants kind of monitoring the chat, so he'll forward up if there are some questions that are relevant on topic and he thinks are of general interest. But what I want to start off with are two questions that I got several times in one form or another on social media. The first one is, what are some examples of common blueprints that you might run into? And this is an interesting question, and obviously since I'm getting it a lot, it's something that is confusing people and people have on their minds, so it's worth addressing. But at the same time, I think it kind of misses the point. And the reason is this. If you were to look at the varied factors of what it is to be a human being, there is so much variety. It's insane. Like if you think about it, you think about maybe like a girl could be rich or poor. She could be of maybe 5 or 6 very common races or ethnicities. She could be educated, not educated. She could be like sporty, goes to the gym, doesn't work out, has a bad diet. I mean, each of those is a separate factor, and each of those could be mixed with all the other factors. So if you say there's like, 2 different variations on this factor, 6 different variations on this factor, 2 different on this factor, you already have 2 times 6 times 2, 24 different possibilities, and that's just on those 3 factors. The numbers get really big really quickly. So trying to define everybody down to like specific blueprint types and like have a solution for everything is not the way to go. The way to go is to kind of take it all as good information and just adjust slightly for each one along the way, and then keep testing sort of as you're going and figuring it all out. So I think that's really the best way to go about it. That said, I think what people are kind of looking for when they're asking that question, because I don't think that they really do honestly think humanity is quite that limited. They're just kind of looking for what are the factors you're looking for. And so there, I would say go back and review the last webinar because I go into a lot more detail than I can. I don't have my notes right in front of me right here, but generally what you're looking for would be things like, what is their demographic? What is their age? How intelligent are they? Are they educated? What's their relationship to money? What do they value in life? Like, were they raised to value a particular, do they value like friends and family very highly? Do they value success very highly? Do they value having free time and being able to relax? Do they like being stressed and organized? Do they, that sort of stuff. So those are the types of questions you're going to ask. And then ask, what are they looking for in a man? So those are the types of things you're looking for in general. And the great thing that'll happen is you'll start to, the more you date different girls and the more you have experience with different girls. And by the way, Blueprint applies to things other than just women. It can apply to business and that kind of stuff. So when you start to get into those kind of things, the more you deal with people in general, you'll start to categorize and you'll start to immediately pick up on those kind of things. So that's kind of a brief look at the factors in Blueprint. Obviously, I have an entire bonus in the Dig-In product that's all devoted to the Blueprint. It's a lengthy video, so that'll go more in depth on that topic. But that gives you kind of a general idea of what you're looking for there. And the big thing is, don't be too pedantic about it. Don't try and have a solution for everything. Understand that everything is just a model, right? All models, they work to a point, but the real world is your real model, right? So look for where the model breaks down as well. Okay, the other one that I got a lot in terms of blueprints was the question of RSD doctrine generally is just be yourself, right? Be yourself, and just some girls are going to like it, some girls are not going to like it, and that's just what it is. And you say the girls that like you are the ones you're meant to get, etc. So why would you bother with this blueprint thing? Well, for me, I never liked that philosophy personally. I never liked that idea that there are some girls I just can't get, or some girls that are just outside of my realm. I want to get as many as possible. I want to have as many options in making my decision for who I'm with, whether it be for life or for a night, as possible. So I look at game as an art, and I want to be the best at it. And I know that this is something that gets results on a practical level, so I want to do it. Okay. Now you could say that's incongruent, it's manipulative, etc. My answer to that would be this: the idea of who you are as self is a very fluid idea. I'm sure that you have certain friends that you probably do one or another activity with. For example, I probably have friends that I play soccer with, friends I go to the gym with, friends I like discuss books and like literature and philosophy with, friends I go game with, et cetera, right? I have friends that are friends just because they're friends of my family that I probably don't even like hanging out with that much, right? And the fact of the matter is I'm a different person in all these different contexts. And so you can be very fluid in the way you relate to a girl. So if a girl's into one particular thing you like, you don't have to relate to her on a different particular thing just because you like that other thing just a little bit more, right? So be a little flexible and be a little open in who you are, and realize that, yeah, you could have a very inflexible relationship. If you say, like, I want a girl to do exactly these 5 things and only these 5 things, then yeah, you might find that girl, but you're gonna have to look and look and look. If you find a girl that's like, I want a girl I'm generally compatible with, we have good energy, good sex, and we have a few things in common that we can share, and that's enough for you, which I think is pretty reasonable, you're gonna do a lot better. So understand that you as a person are fluid. And when I talk about blueprint, I don't talk about changing who you are or lying about who you are in any way. I just talk about using the part of yourself that's most relatable to them, and also just conveying yourself in a way that understands their language. So it's not fundamentally changing who you are, it's being the person that's most compatible with that person within the realm of the people you like to be, if that makes sense. So understand that we are all fluid in general, so we should use that fluidity instead of trying to be rigid, especially when it's to our benefit to do so. Okay. Quick question: these the ones that are highlighted as questions, are those the ones that those are the ones you selected out, or no? Okay, just checking. Okay, cool. We'll take a couple questions here. First one: if you match her blueprint, wouldn't you be placed in provider because that's what she's looking for? That's an interesting way of looking at it. And I would say no, that depends on what her blueprint is. If her blueprint was the blueprint of a provider male and you met that blueprint, then you would be a provider. But a lot of girls' blueprint is they want the guy who's a little dangerous, the guy who's like sexy and playerish. So obviously meeting the blueprint of the non-provider sexy guy is not putting you in the provider frame, right? It just depends what her blueprint actually is. Also, you can meet some parts of her blueprint and not others. So it may be that the girl does want a provider frame guy, on some level that is her blueprint for what she's looking for in a guy. But she also wants, a guy who is ambitious and a guy who is into certain things she's into and all that kind of stuff. So you're very free to meet the blueprint parts that you're actually willing to be and not meet the other ones. So if you don't want to be in the provider frame, don't be in the provider frame. And you can maybe, if that does violate her blueprint of what she thinks she's looking for, that might make it a little harder to get her. But you still don't have to be in that situation you don't want to be in. Does that make sense? And understand, I said this before with blueprint, you don't need to hit her blueprint to get laid, right? I think of it as swimming downstream with the current in a river as opposed to swimming upstream against the current. You can still get there if you're against the current a little bit. You don't have to hit her perfect blueprint to get with her. And by the way, just because you do hit her blueprint on a logical level doesn't mean you will get with her if you're an unattractive man in general. That's a prerequisite as well. You need to have generally attractive qualities. So understand all of those factors as well, okay? So don't think that like the blueprint is the be all and end all, and don't think that you have to like bend to everything the girl thinks she wants. Just understand that these are general guidelines, things you can take into account. You're free to use them or not use them as you see fit, okay? And you're free to, use your judgment in terms of what you do. It's just an added tool to make you better. Let's see if we can get rid of that one. Hang on, don't know if I can, I'm trying to remove that question. I can't yet. Can you put the next one up? You might have to remove the other question. I don't see it. Two seconds for a technical difficulty here. I can't get the other one to go away. Kev, can you remove that question? Okay. So hang on, quick technical difficulty on that one. These are actually really good questions. I think that the key thing that people are getting to on this is don't think of the blueprint as trying to bend over backwards and please the girl and supplicate to the girl. Just think of it as there's more information out there that you're free to use. And information should only be a good thing, right? You don't have to you don't have to use every bit of it. You don't have to change who you are. And you certainly don't have to put yourself in a relationship you don't want to be in, right? If a certain girl is looking for a particular type of relationship that you don't want, you are not obligated to have a relationship with that girl. Oops.
Oh, well, I think the internet went off for me.
The internet went off for me?
Probably went off for you too. Because you're obviously using just RST sign. Just reset the internet.
Okay. The internet. Got it. Is that what happened? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Okay, hang on. I'm back. Can everybody hear me, I hope? All right, guys, so I guess we had a little internet issue there. We should be back live now. And I will take a couple more questions quickly. Kevin, you back online or not yet? Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm back. Okay, good. All right, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I don't know, the internet went out. All right, next question. How do you hook them in the first minute? I'm not attracted at all, and they always say thank you and leave. How do you spike the emotions? Okay, actually, that's a perfect question for this webinar, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about, is how to spike the emotions, etc. And actually within the day game product, I have tons and tons of material on that as well. But actually stay tuned for this webinar, because that'll all be answered pretty much right here. That is actually the topic of this webinar, now that everybody's here. That I want to get to is exactly how to attract the girl, how to do these things that spike their emotion, things that get them hooked, etc., and how not to do them actually. And that's actually a big part of it, because a lot of people know the technicals and have seen and heard the attraction lines and whatnot. By the way, for anybody who hasn't had their question answered, if you have other questions, especially on topic as we go, feel free to write them in. We're going to take another session of question and answer about midway through the webinar. So feel free to keep chiming in with your questions for sure. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about, particularly on this webinar, is attraction lines, attraction techniques, when to use them, when not to use them, what they're good for. And also a big part of it is how to internalize them, because I think a lot of guys are very clunky with them. Like a lot of guys, they learn the attraction techniques and they kind of learn be yourself, and they have trouble sort of dealing with the two at once, because they're like, well, this is me and these are the attraction techniques. Now, which is more important? And usually being yourself is more important. But at the same time, if yourself isn't getting laid, if yourself isn't getting a result, and if yourself is boring and not attracting the girl, you need to at some point learn those attraction techniques. So how do you learn them in such a way that you can use them and still be yourself? So that's what I'm going to talk about a lot, as well as the specific techniques. And we're actually going to do some exercises for those techniques as well, which I'll explain in depth. They're going to be a little interesting doing them over the internet. These are things I've only done live before, but I think they should work pretty well, and I think you guys will get a lot out of it. So I'm kind of excited to do that with you guys. All right. So let's look first at what are standard attraction tactics and what are their pitfalls. Now, most of you guys will have heard of these. I'm just going to give you a list real fast. List of standard attraction tactics would be things like push-pull, mini cold reads, misinterpretation, making polarizing statements, and then just generally being self-amused. And these are all really positive for a number of reasons, right? And the biggest thing that you're looking for, everything that's attractive in a man, what you should look at it as is simulating high value behaviors. You're simulating the behaviors that someone would manifest if they had a lot of women in their life, if they had a lot of resources in general in their life, and they didn't have to care very much, right? Also, you're simulating the behaviors of someone who's been with a lot of women and knows sort of the dance and the flirtation that men and women have together. So anything that conveys those traits is going to be perceived of as an attractive quality. Anything that doesn't is not going to be perceived of as an attractive quality. So these all do that, right? If you push pull or say, I love you, but I'm not so sure. The fact that you're saying I'm not so sure is conveying that you have abundance, because the fact that you can push her away a little bit says you must have other girls or you must not need her too much. At the same time, the fact you say, I love you, that shows some man to woman nature. It shows that you're willing to have intent, which shows that you're familiar with sort of the dance of attraction, the mating dance. So these are very attractive qualities. Now, the problems with all these techniques, there are a few, and these are the reasons why guys get into trouble with it. First problem is they're kind of high energy techniques, right? And that's not inherently bad at all times. Obviously, when you open a set, when you start talking to a girl, you need to be high enough energy to keep her attention. That's a bare minimum. That's quite important. However, the problem is if you're too high energy, you look like you're trying. You look like you're trying hard. You look like you want something, like you have an agenda. And there's two problems with that. Number one, people with agenda are not trusted. But number two, if you have an agenda and you look like you're trying for something, that conveys a lack of abundance. Right? It conveys you're needy and don't have women in your life, which is the opposite of what you actually want to be conveying. So the fact that these are an investment of energy actually is a negative about them. So that's one problem that guys have with them. Second problem guys have a lot is they can't come up with them on the spot. So they may know the technique exists, but they're like, oh, okay, well, what do I do? I know I need to just say something attractive, but what do I say? How do I say it? And this is a technical issue, which we're actually going to address on this webinar, which should be really, really good for you guys. The next one is that maybe you know how to do these techniques, but what you do is because they work, because they get some kind of reaction, because they giggle or the girl blushes or like touches her hair or whatever, you think it's working, so you keep pushing that button that's working over and over and over again until it becomes very obvious that's what you're doing. It becomes very fake, and you don't develop a real connection with the girl. So that's another thing, is that you don't move forward and you don't know what purpose these serve in the greater interaction. You're just doing them to do them. So that's the third problem. And then the fourth problem is an inner game problem, which is if you use a lot of attraction tactics and the girls like you, you'll start to attribute, it's like when I say these things, girls like me, as opposed to girls like me because I'm an attractive man. And so you're starting to attribute the attraction to the techniques rather than to yourself. Okay, so those are the four problems that people run into with these attraction tactics. And so we're going to talk about two things you can do that solve all of these. All right, and the first one is you need to internalize the traits so that you're natural with them. And the second is you need to understand that these are all means to an end rather than an end in themselves. Okay, and I'll go into more depth on both of those. But first, let's talk about internalizing the technique so that it's natural. And with that, I want to talk to you about the general idea of internalizing anything in game and the idea that game can be learned and how to learn game. Okay, this is probably one of the most, like this little segment right here is one of the most valuable things you're ever going to learn in game, so pay attention, all right? I'm going to be a little esoteric, but it's super, super, super valuable. Because the way I look at game, I don't look at game as a set of tactics and techniques. I look at it as a learning process. I look at it as a process of doing something, testing it, learning from it, moving forward, and then internalizing the things that work and internalizing them so well that they become a part of your nature. That it's not something that's try hard for you, it's something you do naturally. For example, when I talk to girls now, or when I, like even when I'm in a relationship, like, I'm in a relationship over like 2 years now, where, we're open and I see other girls and stuff like that. But even in that relationship, I'm not trying to game on a day-to-day basis. I'm not like gaming my girlfriend. But the things that I do naturally have all the traits of game, and she knows game because she's learned it from me, and she recognizes these things, but I'm not doing them intentionally. It's just how I naturally communicate because it's so internalized, and that's what you want to get to eventually. And so I'm going to give you an example of that, and this is a metaphor for how to learn anything. And it's actually like taken from soccer, which is something near and dear to my heart. But basically, if anybody knows the history of soccer, I'll do very briefly. There was a soccer school in the Netherlands called the Ajax Soccer Academy. And basically it's responsible for most of the training techniques for modern soccer. It came out, like they started in the 70s and they've just been like, they crushed it for a while and then everybody copied them. But what they did is they broke down the things that top class players were doing into the smallest little movements, the smallest little parts, and they just had these young kids train those parts over and over and over again until they became natural and internalized, until they could do them quickly, effortlessly, without looking at the ball. So it was like the ball was just a part of their foot. And then they'd work on the next level up and the next level up and the next level up. But the key thing was every single step of the way, they made it so internalized that that they didn't even have to think to execute. So I'm going to show you a quick example, little clip of sort of the progression of of learning soccer, how it starts with these really basic, like stupidly fundamental moves, and then how you can sort of like eventually progress to some crazy, crazy stuff. So I'm gonna show you a quick video. Should be kind of a fun video, but it's a great example of like just how much can be achieved in the learning process over time. Have a look. All right, so this is like the very basics, like the most simple, easy, useless movement you could possibly imagine. And this is where you start. And then you start going, a little bit faster, doing it a little bit, more rigorously. Ideally, you start maybe not looking at the ball, doing it a little smoother. Now you look, maybe you do some more complicated moves, but it's still that repetition, the same move over and over and over again. And at this point, you're still thinking about the move, right? You're still thinking explicitly about doing the move, doing the move, doing the move. But the point is to do it so many times for so long that it becomes internalized until eventually you do this, what you're about to see in a second.
Ibrahimovic houdt Mendes da Silva weg bij de bal. En heeft hem nu zelf. Ibrahimovic. Van het linkerbeen weer naar rechts, toch links. Ibrahimovic. Oh, ja.
Right. And when you ask people about experiences like these, this is the Lionel Messi again, probably the best player in the world. When you ask people about these experiences and you ask them like, what move did you do? They wouldn't be able to tell you. They just know like the defenders kept disappearing in front of them and the goal opened up for them. Because the things they're doing are so natural to them and so innate, they don't have to think about them. And that's the level you want to get to, where you've internalized those skills. And the great thing is not only are those skills internalized, but I guarantee you those two guys, that's Ibrahimovic and Messi for anyone who follows soccer, but those two guys, they're doing things they never explicitly practiced. They never practiced that exact sequence of moves before, but they practiced so many sequences of moves so many different ways that in the moment when it was necessary, those other moves just came out. All right? And that's what you want to get to, and that's how it is in game. A lot of times when I run a set, people ask me like, what did you say? Or how did you do that? Or how did you pass that shit test? And I won't even have been aware there was a shit test because I just passed it so naturally and so effortlessly because I was just, it's just habits for me. It's just internalized. And that's what I want you to get to with everything in game is I want you to be so technically proficient that the habits just come out and you just respond in the right way without even having to think about it. And that comes from two things. First of all, it comes from good inner game and good philosophies, but also it comes from knowing the technique so well that part's not effort. Because if the technique part is not effort for you, that frees your mind up to be paying attention, calibrating, seeing what the girl's giving you so that you know when to use them and you can learn other more higher skills in game. Okay, so that's what I really want you to get to, and that's why I focus so much on technique. That's why in all my teachings, all my videos, you see a lot of technical stuff, and then in the day game program, it's like tons and tons of technical stuff, and even we have drills and exercises. Okay, so that's very, very critical to me, is you get those fundamentals down to the point that they're effortless, because then all the stuff on top of them just comes so much more easily. Okay, the second thing that you need to understand about the attraction tactics, and this is very, very key philosophically, understand that they are not an end in themselves, they are a means to an end. And what you need to understand with this is understand what actual success looks like with girls and what are the things that get you there, and then what are the things that don't. Because a lot of guys, they go and they do these little attraction tactics and they see the girl giggling, they think, oh, I'm doing the right thing, that's good, right? Or they see the girl blushing or touching her hair or whatever, and like, okay, good, let me just keep pushing that button. And understand, like, continuing to push that button doesn't really get them anywhere, all right? That's just an emotion in their body. What you really want, like, if you're gonna write anything down out of this webinar, write this one down, okay? Here's what you want. The end that you're going for is not buying temperature, it's not getting her giggly, it's frame and compliance. It's her falling into like the worldview that you want her to, right? You have a frame of how you see the world, of how you're offering value, of what type of relationship you want. The more she enters into that frame, accepts that frame, and is like living a good life within that frame, the better off you are. And the more that when you say, hey, let's go over here, hey, come here, hey, you know what, repeat after me, Todd, I think you're amazing, whatever. The more you can get her to go along with the things that you are suggesting, and she's accepting you as a leader, right? That's what success looks like in game. That's the things that will get you actual results, right? Getting the girl's buying temperature up will get the interaction to feel good for a few minutes, and it'll be fun, but what'll actually get you results is frame and compliance. So that's what you want to really be working on. And when we talk about like getting girls instantly attracted, we talk about the hook point. We're talking essentially about a model that I came up with. I call it the FRED model. F-R-E-D stands for focus, relevance, emotion, decision. And this is something I discuss in crazy detail in the day game products. Like there's an entire module on hooking in the FRED model. I'm not going to go into it here because I could take up like an entire webinar plus with just this. But understand, I'll just give you the very brief synopsis, which is focus, do you have her attention? Relevance, does she care? Emotion, how much does she care? Does she care a lot or a little? Decision, will she act? And until you have a decision, all you have are chemicals and emotions in her body, which means that at some point when she's, in a different state of mind, those chemicals will dissipate, right? They'll be flooded, she'll be flooded with other different chemicals, or they'll just like flush out of her system. And essentially she will no longer be that same person, right? She won't be the person that was reacting to you because that was a chemical thing. And so when you call her up later, she may forget you. Or if you even were to see her like an hour or two later, she wouldn't even react to you in the same way, because she's not fundamentally the same without the chemicals, the same chemicals in the body. Because chemicals are transient, they're not permanent. But a decision, an action in the real world is something legitimate that happened. And once that occurs, everybody has to acknowledge it. You have to either acknowledge reality or be insane, right? And then if someone is acting as though they like you long enough, they kind of have to rationalize internally, subconsciously, that they do like you. All right, so the key thing is get that decision. You can get all the focus, relevance, and emotion you want. If you don't turn it into a decision, if you don't turn it into frame and compliance, it goes away. It doesn't last. And it's just not as strong anyway, okay? So that's the key thing you want to be working for, is understand that your job is to get a decision. This is kind of equated to like if you were a salesman and you had a product and you got someone all hyped up about the product and then you never asked them to buy and then you just left. And then they just forget about you, right? If you didn't actually get them to make a decision for you, then nothing really happened. So that's what's critical, is getting that decision, okay? Very important. Okay, so now that we know sort of what the pitfalls are and we know what we're doing, understand that all the techniques I'm about to teach you are not an end in themselves, okay? So doing push-pull is not an end in itself. You do push-pull in order to make frame control happen. And how does that work, actually? Let's talk about that very briefly. So when you're putting someone into a high emotional state, you make them more willing and ready to agree to things because they're having a good time. They want to keep that good experience. They're associating that good experience with you, et cetera, et cetera. Also, the brilliant thing about humor in particular, humor is, there's this concept, I don't know if Edward de Bono is the person that came up with it. He's the person that wrote the book called Lateral Thinking. But there's this idea called lateral thinking, which is when you take something and you think about it in a different way. And a lot of humor is that. It's where you take a situation and you reframe it in a way, but you make it be thought of or appear in a different context. And so humor is not only great for positive emotions, and again, when people are have positive emotions with you, they want to continue the interaction, they want to go along with you, they want to comply with you. But also humor is brilliant because it's a great way to enact frame control. Right? If you bring up a frame in like a very confrontational, I'm right and you're wrong kind of way, people will resist it. If you bring up a frame in a humorous way, people will usually go along with it because it's enjoyable, and it's a great way to reframe and do frame control. All right, so understand things like misinterpretation, things like push-pulls. They're a means to an end. They're a means to frame control. They're a means to a deeper connection and a deeper investment from the girl. They're not an end in themselves, okay? So as I teach you these things, understand that. All right, that said, now we're gonna get technical. So in the same way that I just showed you the videos of those like soccer players who are like first learning and getting good, that's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna break down parts of an interaction to their bare bones, and I'm gonna kind of go through them with you, and I'm gonna give you some exercises. And the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna explain the exercise, you explain what you're gonna do, and then I'm gonna show you either some pictures or some videos for the various exercises that are gonna be catalysts for what you're going to use to do the exercise. All right, that may not quite make sense right now, but it will in a second. So let's get into it and just go exercise by exercise. The first exercise actually is not specifically an attraction exercise, but it is one of the most important exercises you can do in game, and it's fundamental to all the others, because if you can't do this one, you're in trouble. And this is an exercise to just always have something to say. All right, and this is actually a comedy exercise as well. It's taken from improvisational comedy. It's also great for passing shit tests. So in that way, it is an attraction exercise. But this exercise is called yes and. So the way this works is you're gonna get a phrase to work with, and then you must say the word yes, the word and, say the word yes, the word and then say the first thing that comes to your mind. Do not edit it, do not censor it, just say it, all right? And then also there's gonna be kind of a blank space. You have to keep talking through the entire blank space, okay? So the way this is gonna work is there's gonna be a quote that comes up on screen, and then as soon as you finished reading the quote, and by the way, if you don't finish reading the quote on time, you can just yes and whatever part of the quote you've read, that's fine too. You say yes and then just talk through the entire black slide until the next quote, all right? And don't edit, don't censor, don't worry about what comes out of your mouth. The whole thing here is just to vomit words, all right? They don't have to be brilliant, they just have to be something. The idea is to keep talking no matter what. So if, trying to think of a random famous quote right now. Say if the quote, I think that one of them is like, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. So then that comes up, you go, yes, and the funny thing is that I used to be scared when I was a kid of, jumping off the diving board. The funny thing was once I dove the first time, I was like, wow, that was amazing. I just wanted to go again and again and again. So that's just an example. I just yes-anded and I said something immediately afterwards. So you're gonna do that until the next slide comes up, okay? So that's the idea. I'm now going to start playing a bunch of slides for you on the screen. So it'll be a quote with actually some music, and then it'll be a blank space. So you yes and through the blank space. When the next quote comes up, cut it off, and then yes and that quote and keep going. The idea again is keep talking no matter what. All right, here we go. Should be fun. And remember to continue talking through the entire blank space. Don't stop talking no matter what. All right, and good. All right, so hopefully you guys were able to do that. If not, you can always watch this on the replay page again, and you can do this exercise actually over and over again if you would like to through that context. So that's a good way to do it. And again, I know some people said that it was kind of fast. If that's the case, it's totally fine. You can just, whatever part of the quote you've read, you can yes and that. It's not so important what the content is, it's the exercise itself. And the key phrase here is the idea of yes and. Understand this is very critical for always having something to say. Yes and has two parts. It has the yes and the and both are important. Yes means I agree with the world as it is, right? I'm okay with life. I'm not in resistance to the frame. And means I'm going to offer my own perspective. And that's a great way to speak, because when you speak that way, it's very hard not to be liked, especially early on in the interaction. If you're doing yes and type of communication, it's very hard for anyone to reject you, right? It's also a great way to pass a shit test. Think of almost any shit test. Is that your pickup line? Yes, and I hope you like it, right? I think you're ugly. Yes, and I appreciate your opinion, but my mom told me I was beautiful, right? It doesn't matter. You just say yes and. Almost anything you say after yes and, you can't be reactive, which means by default you may not perfectly pass the shit test, but you're never going to fail it, right? Another thing you can do to always keep talking is you can yes and yourself. So you'd be like, hey, I saw you, I wanted to talk to you, I thought you were cute. They don't respond. Yes, and you're giving me this very blank look, which is very interesting because it reminds me of the Mona Lisa, who, has this sort of like smirk on her face. Yes, and blah, blah, blah. You just keep talking yes, and, yes, and, yes, and. So it's a great way to always have something to say. Again, great exercise that you can do if you ever run out of things to say or have trouble with finding things. Okay, next exercise we're going to do is getting more directly into attraction tactics. And this one's called I love and I hate. It's very similar, almost the exact same format as the previous one, except for in this case, instead of the words yes and, you're going to use either the word I love or the phrase I love or the phrase I hate. Okay, so for example, if it was 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, you go, I love the Civil War. I think it's like a phenomenal time in history. I think it was a fascinating period of like military tactics, whatever. Okay, or you can be like, I hate slavery. I hate da 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 da. Okay, and so then you just go off on your tangent. So it's going to be the exact same format as the previous exercise. You're going to see a quote on the screen with some music, and then when that ends, you're going to say either I love or you're going to say I hate. You can choose either one. You can go back and forth. I suggest doing some of both. Don't just be I love, I love, I love, or I hate, I hate, I hate. But do some of both. And then again, keep talking no matter what until the end. The idea here is that you're being someone who has opinions. You're being someone who's willing to express themselves and take strong action. You're being a leader in the interaction. You're being polarizing. And these are very attractive qualities, okay? Again, if the words come up and go down too fast, whatever you've read, adjust I love and I hate based on the part that you've read. Okay, it's not that you have to be perfect with this exercise. It's not that what you say has to make brilliant sense or be like the most genius thing ever said. It's that you just follow the format. The beautiful thing about game is if you get the formats right, the words almost don't matter. All right, so with that said, let's go to it. I'm going to give you another little slide reel, and we're going to do I love and I hate. Okay, good. So that should have been some really excellent practice for you guys. And again, you guys can, when the webinar replay comes up, you can always go over this again, and you can practice over and over. If you had any trouble with any of the exercises, I highly suggest, if any of these exercises particularly gave you difficulty or trouble, go back and drill them again. So it's a great opportunity for you to practice on those things, okay? And if any of you had questions come up as we were going through this, we're gonna do a few more exercises, and then at the end of the exercise, I actually will take a further set of questions from you guys. So we can go over whatever questions or sticking points you guys may have had briefly there as well. Okay, the next one, now we're gonna get really into specific attraction tactics. We're gonna talk about the push-pull. And the push-pull is absolutely like critical to game. It's like the fundamental idea of flirtation. You know, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. So what you wanna be doing in this case is I'm gonna have pictures that are gonna come up on the screen now. And as soon as the picture comes up, I want you to just say the first thing you think. Do not edit, do not censor. I promise the picture is not gonna get offended, so you don't have to worry about being politically correct, all right? Don't edit, don't censor, just say the first thing that comes out of your mouth. And then, if that thing was positive, follow it up with a negative statement. If that thing was negative, follow it up with a positive statement. So say that, you know, there was a picture on the screen of like maybe a really douchey guy might be like, wow, you look so douchey. But you know what? The hair gel is like, it's immaculate. I appreciate that, right? So that's a negative and then a positive. Or if some girl like a hot girl in a weird costume came up, I'd be like, oh my God, you're so hot, but you know, I'm not so sure about that skirt. Make sense? So what you're gonna do is create the push-pull on the spot. Again, I don't want you to worry too much about it being good. Just get the format right. You're gonna have a period of time after each picture. If you're particularly competent with this, if you're very good at push-pull in general, what I would challenge you to do is try and do 2 in the interval. So then you do a push-pull, push-pull. So if it's a positive, negative, positive, negative. And you eventually should get to the point with push-pull that you could do it over and over and over again. Like you'll hear some of, actually in some of the interactions that I'm gonna show you on this webinar, and especially if you get the day game product or you know, look at some of my hot seat or some infield stuff that I do. Basically I can do push-pull indefinitely. I can be like, you know what I love about you? Absolutely nothing. Actually, there's this thing, but it's a little weird. But you know, I like that you're creative and interesting and unique, by which I mean that you kind of freak me out, but you know, at least you're not boring completely, right? So it's like pop, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. So that's what you want to get to eventually. So what's going to happen here, it's going to be a series of pictures. Every time a picture comes up, say the first thing you think. Do not edit, do not censor. And then again, if it was positive, make it a negative statement next. If it was negative, make it positive. If it's kind of a neutral statement, don't worry about it. Choose either a positive or negative, and that will then filter the previous one into being whatever category it could have been. Okay, so without further ado, let's look at the pictures and get started. And I will tell you, a lot of these are female, and then there's a few surprises thrown in. Try not to be thrown off too much by them. The point is, don't worry too much about it being male, female, or animal, vegetable, mineral, whatever. Just get the format. Remember, push, pull. Okay, good. So hopefully that was pretty doable for you guys. Again, if you had trouble with them, especially this one in particular, if you were unable to come up with the push-pulls quickly, I highly, highly encourage you to go back, look at the replay, and get it to the point where you can do this. If you can push-pull regularly and easily, it's going to make your game much, much, much easier. If you have trouble coming up with these on the spot, even in a context where you're not flustered and not thinking, oh my God, she's hot, it's just going to make it more difficult when you do have that, right? So the fact of the matter is, like, there's two ways of looking at game. There's the outer game and the inner game. If the inner game is wonderful and you have all the right frames, you're going to naturally have better outer game. But if you have great outer game, even if you are a little flustered, even if you're a little nervous, at least you're going to be nervous in generally the right direction and take generally the right behaviors because you have the ingrained habits. All right, so the best way to attack game is through that combination of getting the inner game and your belief and philosophies and ideas and frames right, but then also have the techniques in place so that even when you're not perfect in the other areas, you still respond out of habit in a very, very good way. All right, so that's push-pull. The next one we're going to do is called mini cold reads. And this one basically is of this format, okay? You're so X, it's just like Y. So it could be like, you're so blue, you're like a little Smurf. Or it could be like, you're so well dressed, you're like a little penguin. Does that make sense? Or you're so cute, you're like my little sister. They don't even have to make sense. It could be like, you're so red, you're like a sumo wrestler. That doesn't even make sense. But the point is, if you follow that format, it actually would be effective in set. Because the idea of a mini cold read is not to be like brilliant or comedic or whatever. Now, if you happen to do that, that's great. But the main idea of the mini cold read is to make the girl think about herself and put her kind of in her head rather than thinking about the interaction. And so even if the mini cold read doesn't make sense, it does it. In fact, arguably, if the mini cold read makes no sense, it might do that even more because it's more confusing. Okay? So the point again is, it's the format that's the powerful thing. The actual words are less important. So just get used to coming up with the format on command. This is going to be structured the same as the last one, which is it'll just be a series of pictures. So each time a picture comes up, do a mini cold read. You're so X is just like Y. If you feel particularly adept, you can try and do multiple mini cold reads for the same picture while we're waiting for the next picture. The point is to get the repetitions and get it to the point where these formats become very natural for you. So without further ado, here goes. Here's the next set. All right, good. And that again is a great format for starting the interaction in such a way that you're going to make it about the girl. Again, I talked earlier about the Fred model: focus, relevance, emotion, decision. This type of format, the mini cold read, is a great way to sort of spark relevance and emotion in the interaction. So it's a great way to start the hooking process. And again, if you can get used to speaking these ways that are a little bit illogical, a little bit off the wall, but are effective structures of communication, if these become your verbal habits, then you'll get better and better. And the nice thing is, even if you just learn them a little bit, even if you don't become an expert at them, it's going to make you a little bit better at game, right? And the key thing also, I'll say, as I'm teaching you these formats, I don't want you to go out today and go try and do all of these in the next interaction. What you should do is, practice them a little bit, get better at them, and then just go be yourself and trust that whatever you've practiced, whatever habits you've ingrained are going to naturally come out to whatever extent they do. And then you keep practicing a little bit, and then they naturally come out. You might particularly focus on maybe one of these techniques when you go out, just to really, iron it out and get it nailed in, but don't focus on too many of them at once. Remember, it's called the game and not the work for a reason, and you don't want to overload yourself, all right? So be patient with yourself, just ingrain these slowly. Okay, the final one we're gonna do is, I think, a really fun one, and this is misinterpretation. It's kind of how to pass shit tests. It's also how to take a sort of a boring, mundane conversation and make it sexual. So what this is gonna be, it's gonna be a series of little sound bites. So taking these from movies, actually I took them from cheesy girl movies. So take that for what you will. But in any case, there's gonna be a little sound bite, and what I want you to do is misinterpret it. So whatever is said, I want you to either take it as a compliment or take it as even a sexual advance, okay? For example, if it was like, I saw you staring at me over here, you could be like, well, I'm glad you noticed. It's wonderful that we both like each other, right? So you just misinterpret it as though it's a compliment, right? Or if, like a girl's taking a test and she's like, this is so hard, you'd be like, wow, not yet, but I mean, you've got potential. I think you're quite cute. Right, so you misinterpret it as though she meant it in a more sexual way or a more flattering way than she actually did. Okay, so it's gonna be a series of sound bites. There'll be a period after the sound bite for you to misinterpret it. Again, if you wanted to, you could multiple misinterpret this. Like if you do one and then there's still time left, you could totally do a second misinterpretation if you're truly like expert. But just coming up with one is probably good enough in these cases. This one's probably a little bit of a more difficult drill than the others. But here we go. I'm gonna give you the sound bites now. Enjoy, and they should be kind of funny as well.
I don't know if anyone told you about me. Are you okay? Wait, hold on. Let me try that again. That was terrible. Do we get paid for this? Oh, and do I have to provide my own uniform? I'm sorry. I just broke up with my boyfriend.
So you agree? What? You think you're really pretty?
On Wednesdays, we wear pink. What are you?
Boy, you're really strong, aren't you?
I could put my whole fist in my mouth. Want to see? I can't go out. I'm sick. Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness? I'm sorry that people are so jealous of me, but I can't help it that I'm popular.
Okay, now again, that one is maybe a little tougher than some of the others, but if you can do that one very quickly and repeatedly on prompts like that, then you're gonna be very, very good at thinking on your feet, passing shit tests, etc. So these are great ways to drill the exercises. Obviously, the best way to drill the exercises is by going out, doing some approaches and getting it in field. But short of that, this is a pretty good way to practice at home. And actually, because of that, there's an extensive, when I created the day game product, basically, I created an extensive array of at-home exercises as well as an extensive array of in-field exercises because, again, you need to practice, right? Practice in the field, practice at home. So it's very, very critical that you be doing those different types of things. Okay, so now that we've done all those exercises, I want to open it up one more time to questions. And Kevin, you on it? Okay. I'll open it up one more time to questions. If you have questions that came up during that, or if you have general questions about any of this sort of attraction stuff, I'll go ahead and take those, and I'll give you guys, a few seconds to type them up and kind of get them to me. We'll take just a few quick questions. Okay, question. How not to cross the line with being rude at push-pull, and then again, how not to be too nice. It's a really good question. Probably the best quick answer to that, I'd go a lot more in depth, obviously. You'll see when I break down kind of the footage I'm going to do in a second, and then also like in the day game product itself, I go a lot more in depth as well. But the general idea is you need to calibrate. You need to find out where the line is. Most guys are inherently too nice. Like if this is like nothing and this is like what you could get away with, 10 out of 10, most guys are like here. They're at like a 2 or a 3 out of 10, and they think they're being like edgy and polarizing, whereas they should be here, right? Because where you're almost at the point of what you can't get away with is where you're the most powerful. And in order to find out where that place is, you need to occasionally cross the line. Like occasionally, not all the time. If you're crossing the line every set, that's bad. But you do need to find out what level you can get to, right? So cross the line occasionally. I still remember vividly the first few times I crossed the line with girls. It was like I'd have a girl, she'd like me more. She was like super into me. Like you could tell she's like getting wet in front of me. And then like all of a sudden she would just snap and like flip out, right? And that had to happen a few times for me to calibrate. But because I've done that, I know where the line actually is. And my game is far more powerful as a result. So you need to kind of find out where that is. What's that? Hang on. Okay, so that's kind of how to deal with the calibration. That's actually a really good question in general because, I can give you all the technique in the world, but it's hard without being in person with you or without, a little more interaction to deal with that calibration part. But what I can do and what I teach extensively whenever I teach my clients or whenever I do, or within the day game program, is I teach you the ways to calibrate yourself so that you're not calibrating blindly. And that's very, very important because that can take literally like years off your learning curve. So that's another thing is just having guidance in that calibration and being smart about it really, really helps. Okay, with that said, I'm gonna crack into some infield examples, and these are two really interesting infield examples. They're ones where I use these attraction tactics to a certain extent, but they're a little bit different sets. The first one I'm gonna show you is more of a higher energy set, and the second one is more of a lower energy set. And remember what I said before, which is the high energy tactics are not an end in themselves, they are a means to an end. And that end is frame and compliance, okay? That's very, very critical, all right? And especially when we talk, we're gonna get to it on the fourth webinar, which by the way, highly, highly encourage everyone to come to. We talked in the first 3 webinars again, we talked about getting a solid number. We talked about the girl's blueprint. Here we're talking about attraction tactics. The fourth one is A to Z, how to get a girlfriend. And we're gonna bring all these different topics all together in that one so that you get sort of like the total mix. It's like we've made all the little bits and pieces of the recipe. Now we're gonna mix it all together in that fourth one. So I highly encourage you to attend that. Also, if you haven't checked out the first and second ones, definitely check those out as well. Actually, can we get, Kevin, can we do a link to the page where they can get to the first and second webinars if they don't have them yet? Check out the link we're gonna post here as well, so you can access those at your leisure. So highly encourage you to check out all that. But here again, so the reason I brought up the fourth webinar is when we talk about frame and compliance, that's very, very critical when we talk about how to get a girl deeply invested in you and how to get her to want to sort of like be your girlfriend or want something more serious with you. Like being the fun, clownish guy that made her laugh is one thing, but getting her to invest, getting her to have a narrative in her head, that's what we're really gonna talk about, having a narrative in her head, having a great story about you that she buys into and believes in and is invested in and attracted to. That comes from, again, frame and compliance. So remember, means to an end. So this first interaction I'm going to show you is much more high energy. The second one is very low energy. But think of them in this context that they are both very solid interactions, right? They're both effective interactions. So understand you don't have to be high energy. And in fact, in some ways, the lower energy one, even though it looks less impressive, is actually the more solid interaction. So I really want to make that point for you guys because I think so many guys, they get into game and at first they're not getting reactions from girls. So when they learn to get the reactions, they get kind of addicted to it. And then they just go in with the idea of getting reactions as opposed to the idea of actually moving the interaction forward and getting a result, okay? So without further ado, let's look at the first set.
So It's my friend Hodge.
How are you? Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I thought I introduced myself by stepping on your foot. How do you feel about that?
Nice.
Okay.
I like to impose myself on the interaction very quickly.
You gotta make the mark.
I like that. I like the general witticism and feistiness of this
This little crew.
So you get
this little small entourage we have. This twosome.
Right?
Yeah.
Still in the middle.
I know, we were just like, we're stopping traffic.
Should take like a quarter of a step this way and we'll be all good. Like you come here.
you're right.
Yeah, we're gonna feng shui this shit. Ready? There you go.
No backs to doors right now. Everyone find a door. All
Is that
right.
actually a thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I didn't even know about
You can't be sitting down with your back to the door.
Okay, so notice I came in very, very strong here, and I'm being very assertive, right? That's where I'm gonna feng shui this shit, and I'm moving them around, right? It's just very assertive, and it's very unapologetic, right? I came in and stepped on her foot, so they'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm like, yep, well, I'm gonna introduce myself by stepping on your foot. So it's very much my frame is the important one. I think that whatever I'm doing is right, and I expect them to fall into alignment with that. Even when I do something that I know is socially weird or wrong, like just walk in and step on her foot. Right, the frame is anything that I did was the shit because I did it.
If someone comes in behind you.
that makes
Unless you've got a mirror.
Bad.
But that's also
So if you have a mirror that's like
bad. We need to sage this place.
You guys know way too much about this. You really do. I'm a little concerned, actually.
I'm sorry. We just
He was just trying to make a joke. He took it too far.
Right, and that's sort of like a push-pull in a way, because I introduced this topic and they jumped on the topic, so it's like this very positive vibe, and then you guys know way too much about this, I'm a little concerned, right? So I'm push-pulling it again. I'm always a step ahead, right? I'm always the one leading the frame. I'm always the one leading the next topic. I'm always the one deciding where the judgment is. I'm deciding whether something's good or bad. I'm not letting them be the deciders, right? So I'm already in the frame of I'm qualifying them, they're jumping through my hoops, etc. Yeah, I think in general, with all of us, let's not take things too far. Let's take things very slow, and I'm very shy, so.
What's your name?
Todd, nice to meet you.
Todd.
Todd, T-O-D-D, Todd.
Todd. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure, yeah. Nice to meet you guys. You guys are very cool. You guys are fun. Yeah. Ish, so far.
Yeah, you don't really know it.
I mean, I don't want to make gross generalizations that might later be proven false.
Oh, okay. All right. Truthful. That's nice.
That is what
Honesty.
it is.
honesty is very nice.
You got like the full like thought out version of that is thus far based on the extremely limited interaction I've had with you and my general perception based on inherent stereotypes on your attire and carriage. You seem like you potentially could be relatively cooler than the average chicks.
Wow, that
Okay, now a lot of people ask me how I do that. Well, here's how I do it. I came from the right frame, and so I was just free to say whatever the fuck I wanted, right? And sometimes it'll come out really good like that. Sometimes it won't come out quite as good, but the fact of the matter is that because it's from the right frame, anything you say is going to come out good. In fact, you can even ramble from the right frame. A lot of times, if I don't know what to say to a girl, I'll go up and just ramble. I'll be like, hey, I thought you were cool. I thought you might be, you looked cute. Actually, I don't even know if you're cool. I barely even met you. For all I know, you're just probably the next weird person. But, I would love to be able to give you a compliment, like say that, you have a wonderful personality, but I don't even know that. All I can say is that you're attractive, so I'm going to have to be superficial right now. In fact, if my mom was looking at this right now, she would totally just be like, Todd, what are you even doing with this, this girl? Who the hell does she even think she is? But, I'm intrigued by you and I'm a hopeless romantic, so I thought I'd say hi. Right now, is that the best game ever? No, but it's decent. And even though it's rambly and a little bit try-hard, it's rambly and try-hard from the right frames. I didn't say anything that's low value. I didn't say anything that was from a non-selector frame. And so for that reason, it can be very effective. All right, so if you get the frame right, you're allowed to ramble because once the frame's right, you almost can't say anything wrong.
why don't why?
Feeling good.
You like that?
I like this one. What was that? Did I really look that great? Thanks. Cool.
He didn't say look.
I mean, from the general perception of the pursuit, something. Outlook, yes, got it, cool. Liked it, liked what I heard. Didn't know what it meant.
I've never made a decision for myself in life. So,
I don't know people know. I don't.
Here's another big one. So a lot of guys do these major attraction tactics, these high energy tactics. Here's one that's actually probably stronger and more valuable than all of them, and it's super low energy, non-tryhard, almost James Bond. It's called disqualifying yourself, right? If you are disqualifying yourself or disqualifying her, you're conveying so much abundance because no guy that doesn't have options would ever do that. Right, so disqualifying, just saying, oh, you and I wouldn't get along, or oh, I'm actually not that great. You probably wouldn't like me. It's fine. It's not you. It's me. That kind of thing is absolutely huge. Absolutely huge, and it's something I do a ton of. So pay attention for that as well.
Say
I'm what you
We're
call,
going to the hip. So actually, yeah.
that's gonna be really odd walking because you have a height difference. So you guys are gonna walk
Yeah,
with a
one
collective
leg
like
is-
4-legged limp.
You didn't see the 4-inch lift shoes I have like in my backpack? Yeah. I've got to get like creepers.
What are you eating actually? I feel like I should have gotten warm. This is like
I know. That's why I don't understand. I only got warm food.
You guys can share.
Huh?
You guys can share.
That's true.
No,
Yin
really
yang of
can't.
everything.
Oh, that would be
I am
disgusting.
not eating
Utterly and totally disgusting.
that.
No, not yours or hers individually, but the combination would be pretty disgusting. Right, and that's just judgmental, right? Just like that would be disgusting. It's again putting it in the frame that like they should care that I find it disgusting. They should care about my opinion. By stating my opinion openly and repeatedly, the frame is they should care about my opinion, right? And so if they do anything other than that, then they're try hard. But if they do care about my opinion, now they're qualifying themselves to me. They're putting me in a position of high value. So it's a win-win. Actually,
I don't know why you decided.
yours is like cold and squishy, and hers is like warm and wholesome, like hearty. So it's like kind of
Yeah,
weird.
warm
Like
and hearty, but what sounded better?
cold and squishy, obviously.
Obviously, it was the cold and squishy.
well, I mean that's like us. Like he's warm and hearty. I'm pretty cold and squishy. So you know. It is, right. Again, disqualifying myself. I'm cold and squishy. It's just how it is. I'm the evil friend.
I'm the evil one.
Well, it's not so much evil as squishy, but anyway.
Wow, you are really setting the bar high over here.
Not even worried about that. I'm just entertaining myself. It's cool. Either way.
In Whole Foods, what else can you do, really?
That or eat. Eat or entertain yourself.
Yeah, you can either be vegan or you can just talk to random strangers.
Vegan. I get meat here. Is that a problem? Is that bad that I get meat? I have to be vegan?
Absolutely vegan.
I'm sorry. It was really nice meeting you guys. This is not going to
So
work out.
cool.
Right? Disqualifying myself. I'm sorry. It was nice meeting you guys. I'm sorry it's not going to work out. More disqualifying. Again, how non-needy is all this? No, it's not you, it's me. I think you guys are still like wonderful people. I don't have any like inherent deep problems with you. It's just that like for me, but you know, I'm sure you guys are gonna be great guys. I have single friends. You know.
She's actually not a vegan.
She's actually not a vegan.
Yeah, I think the fact that she has octopus in the box
Yeah.
sends a very strong.
I just don't know why you have
You
that.
gotta love it when girls have octopus in the box. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's just it. And that's that misinterpretation, right? That's essentially not misinterpreting her compliment or her comment, but misinterpreting the student who's winging with me's comment. But that's that power of misinterpretation, the ability to turn a mundane thing very, very sexual. Octopus in the box. Obviously, I can't resist you doing something with that line. Not say that. I'm sorry. You guys make the night more, or apparently the late afternoon more
We make
enjoyable.
the 5 to 6-ish time period pretty cool.
And notice how they're just jumping into my frames, right? She's like moving around more, reacting more, trying to like fit in and just everyone's like looking for my approval in the situation. That's what a good set looks like. And that's what you notice. Anyone who's good at game, they may have their good sets or their bad sets, but they're always the one dictating what's happening. They're never the one at reaction. They're always the one at cause.
Only during this time of day, once a day, that's it. So
You're like,
maybe if you're in the Indian section,
you're like happy hour vampires.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like you guys seem like you have a good vibe together. You should all hang out. And so here I'm basically number closing for the student. This is something I do regularly when I'm teaching, that kind of stuff.
That's right. Good to know.
We're going to B-Bar.
We'll probably be in LES. I'm not sure. We're thinking like we're starting like Beauty in Essex, and then we might go over to B-Bar. Maybe we were there that area last night, or we might go over to meet Becky in the night. I'm not really sure, but yeah. Okay. But we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
One way or another. We can exchange laughs, and you can make fun of me, and I can introduce everybody as you the girl with the octopus in her box. All right, so there you see, I'm obviously just joking around a lot. It's pretty good. I'm definitely, dominating the interaction, etc. It's not actually the way I would normally game that set. Probably at some point, because they're reacting to me enough, I would actually like chill out and spend more time getting to know them. The reason actually in that case that I was so much just attraction, is that I was gaming for the students. And so typically students tend to be almost no attraction. So they're like very much comfort because they're non-threatening. Whereas like, so so in order for there to be a proper balance, I have to go in and be the attraction. And actually, we'll talk about this a lot on the 4th webinar where we talk about like getting the girl to invest, building a connection, building that deep rapport with the girl, transitioning into the comfort phase. So that's where a lot of guys lose the girl, is the comfort phase. So that'll be like a big topic for the 4th webinar, is that we'll talk about building comfort, building that deep connection, not losing her there. And actually I have 3 very special, never before like kind of like surprises for you guys on that webinar as well. Actually, Kevin, do you want to give them the link for that? So just so you guys know, because you really don't want to miss that 4th webinar, Kevin's going to put up the link for that 4th webinar right now. You guys can go ahead and click there so that you won't miss out on that one. That's something definitely to look forward to as well. All right, so that's an example of an interaction where, again, it was a little more high energy. And you definitely see the connection. You see them trying to invest, trying to chase my frame. And that's what you want to see when you're doing these attraction tactics correctly. The next one you're going to see is a girl who's also very, very attracted to me, definitely chasing my frame, but it's a much more low-key vibe. And instead of joking around so much, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of subtly imply frames, subtly imply value in various ways. And what you're going to see here is, I guess the phrase I've kind of coined for this recently is like the humble brag. But basically it's how to brag without bragging. And what you do is you can say these very attractive, very positive things about yourself as long as you couch them as though you're not trying to be positive. In fact, if anything, you couch them as though you're a little embarrassed about them or as though they're like kind of a negative. Watch and see kind of how I build value in a very different way in this set. So instead of going through the attraction tactics in order to get frame and compliance, I'm going almost straight through frame. And this is how I can be extremely low key, and you can watch me in set and it looks like almost nothing's happening. And then the girl just gets really invested. We end up leaving together, and then good things like sex happen and things like that. So have a look. Should be an interesting one. This is probably very different than a lot of the sets that you guys have run before.
Hey, excuse me. I absolutely adore your look. It's a very sort of casual workout chic, if you will.
And that essentially is like a mini cold read, right? You're so X, it's just like Y. I adore your look, it's just like whatever. That's essentially a variation on the mini cold read theme. So that's an attraction tactic right off the open.
You are very welcome. And you were very expressive as well. I'm sorry, who are you? Nice to meet you. You, I mean, to be fair, you're a stranger, so who knows, but you seem cool.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, taking the judgmental frame, right? Not like crazy funny or anything like that, but just taking the frame of being the appraiser and the one who decides as opposed to the one who's decided upon.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a lot for me so fast. I'm very shy. But, did you just come from the gym, or?
I did.
Very nice. Me too. I, changed, but.
Right, and then just see subtly condescending, right? I did too, I changed, as in that's the right thing to do. Just a subtle, just subtly judgmental, right? And again, she can do one of two things with this. She can either get offended and fight the frame, in which case she's being reactive to me, or she can accept it, in which case I'm the higher value person. So it's just this subtle, slight, little 2% here, 2% here, 5% here, just gradually putting her into my frame.
Oh, thank you. Look at you. You have an eye for fashion on top of everything else. Who knew?
Are you from Las Vegas? Or?
I live in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
From Las Vegas now. I was not born, but you?
Also notice, and this is a very big thing, that even though I'm doing things that qualify as frame control, attraction tactics, game, that kind of stuff, a large portion of the set is just getting to know the girl, and that's very important for connection. Again, when we talk on the 4th webinar about building that connection, making a girl into your girlfriend, that connection, those little mundane facts and what I call the baseline of the conversation, as opposed to the plot line, which is the game, the baseline becomes very, very important. So you want a lot of that. You want the game to be the seasoning, not the steak, right? The general conversation is the steak, the game is just the seasoning.
No, I do. Okay. Oh, you're newer than me. I've been here too. So, I'm originally from Colorado, moved here from New York though.
Oh, nice. New York's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. Actually, I don't know, well, New York's a very hot, dirty city this time of year, but has amazing people. I love, exactly.
That's what I love.
So when you came to Vegas, did you lose out on some of the culture? Are you missing it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's definitely different.
Yeah. I feel like in New York you meet like attractive people and then you're like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I do this ambitious cool thing. And here you're like, you meet ambitious cool people like, well, you know, I like stand around and look cute.
Really?
I mean, that's not what they say, but it's some form of occupation where that's essentially what the job is.
Yeah, that sounds about right though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So do you stand around and look cute? Did I just like vaguely insult you, or are you like?
So that's potentially a little risky. That's potentially a little bit polarizing, but that's intentional, right? It's okay to be polarizing. It's okay to take a risk. It's okay to offend her. If she happens to have that kind of job, then fine, I offended her a little bit. It is what it is. First of all, I'm screening, I prefer girls that don't have that kind of job. Like I prefer a girl that does have an intellect, so it's a screening. But secondly, even if she does, like girls who do have those hot girl jobs, if you call them out on that and call them out as in like you think that's like kind of lame in a way, that's great, because those girls have so many guys kissing their ass anyway. Like just not kissing their ass actually will help you stand out. So it's kind of a win-win anyway. But the big thing is don't be afraid of offending the odd girl. If 1 girl in 10 kind of fucking hates you because you said something a little offensive because you were polarizing, that's okay, because the other 9 are gonna like you much more for it. And that's what's really important. And that 1 out of 10 that doesn't like your particular sense of humor, that's the one you weren't gonna have a good relationship with anyway, so who cares?
You really don't, trust me. Like, you think you do, but you really don't. She must be very organized.
Well, I try to be.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be.
Okay, so this is what's going to come up in a second is an example of this humble brag. So I'm going to phrase this as though I'm such a disaster, I'm so disorganized. But what I'm really going to say is I have my life together, I'm successful, I have a life you want. So listen.
I definitely have my work cut out for me.
See, I'm a disaster in that area. I run like 3 small businesses, but essentially I have people who are on payroll just to keep me organized because I'm so bad.
And once I can actually get...
Right, so I'm such a disaster, oh woe is me, et cetera, I'm so like ashamed of this being the fact. But what did I really say? I run 3 small businesses, I have people on payroll just to keep me organized. It's like winning at life, right? But I phrased it in a way that wasn't like, oh, I'm so cool. It was in a way that was almost negative, so I get away with it, right? I phrased it modest, and then what was being conveyed was conveyed sort of subtly. You can also do this in a great way with any kind of characteristics that you know are attractive qualities in a man, but that are characteristics that society would tell you are unattractive. Because you know there's all that societal bullshit of like, you know, be the gentleman and like buy her flowers and open doors and that kind of stuff. And if you convey that you're like the roguish guy who doesn't do that, or who like plays by like marches to the beat of his own drummer, which is actually what really is attractive, but you say it as a negative thing as though you think like you should be the other way, that's very, very attractive. You're conveying all those attractive qualities, but in a way that doesn't seem try hard or forced in any way. Okay, so that's what you want to do when you want to brag, is phrase the brag as a non-brag. If anything, phrase it as modesty.
Point, which hopefully is within the next 12 months, I will have that person.
Really? All
Oh
right.
yeah. I need to do that too. It's a lot. What kind of, what industry are you?
Like self-help, motivational speaking, life coaching, that kind of stuff.
Oh, nice.
So think, you know, like Tony Robbins. Think like if he were completely not politically correct. That would be amazing.
Right, so here I'm conveying those attractive qualities, not being politically correct, being a little bit of like, I just tell it how it is, I don't give a fuck, that kind of stuff. So I'm saying that's about myself, which is a characteristic I know is attractive to a woman, but I'm saying it as though it's a negative thing in a way. So again, I can get away with it in that context.
Yeah.
Okay.
So less rich and famous, but also way less politically correct. I like to be like, cut the bullshit. I'm just gonna like be honest with you.
Very cool. So what brought you to Las Vegas was
An airplane.
And then this is just like silly misinterpretation. That's actually legitimate, like just straight up like high energy attraction tactics. It's fine to have some of that in there as well.
So I would ask, could I sit for a minute? What are you doing here today, actually? You're just like getting lemons. You have like a bag of lemons.
Lemons, and I'm waiting for the girl who writes on the face.
Okay.
Write Happy Father's Day on the cake.
Aww.
Yeah.
You are just all sweetness today.
Oh, well, thank you.
Like legitimately, I came over here and I was like, I probably will hate this girl, but she's elegant and chic, and I have to talk to her. And now you're being all sweet. Why would you do this to me?
Right here, this is just like showing intent basically. But again, it's a push-pull, because it's like, you know, as though you don't like it, as though you're not wanting to have that intent shown, as though you're hesitant, etc. So there's a push-pull nature. And by the way, it's a great thing. You can, if you're just showing intent and it's all all like pressure on, pressure on, pressure on. You can only show a little bit and the girl gets very nervous. But if you push pull, that actually, not only does it make it better for her because it's flirtatious and a better experience, but also it makes it less constrictive for her and less like, she doesn't feel like claustrophobic by all the attention because there's the push away as well. So you can actually get away with more. So you can do more and you do more with what you're doing. This push-pull is so valuable if you want to show intent. If you're showing intent without push-pull, it's very difficult because you're walking a very fine line. Push-pull gives you the ability to calibrate all over the place and get away with so much more. Very useful tactic. So implement it, also practice it. I gave you guys the drill, so do it.
Search for healthy food. Yeah, I need, well, this is gonna sound really ready for me to be all posh and frou-frou.
All right, and again, this is gonna be another humble brag.
I have someone who normally does my shopping for me, but he messed up and gave me like rotten blueberries, so I have to pick up some of my own groceries right now. I'm here to just pick up a couple odds and ends. And apparently I'm here to meet if you believe in things like that. You have the most adorable smile right now, actually. Although you are blushing a little, which is good as well. Okay, so actually work in a profession, actually work out. What am I gonna hate about you down the road? Just let's just get out of the way now so I can not start to like you. You're like nothing. I'm perfect.
Oh, yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
not the truth.
But you work out though, so it's okay. You work it off.
Yeah.
What do you do? Like run, hike, yoga?
No, I mean right now I just lift weights. I actually just came off of like.
Ready?
Okay.
Let's see the guns. Are you left or right-handed?
Right.
Okay, so this is like I can assume it's even better over there.
All right, and again, this is just taking the frame of like being the one who's judging. Again, who's jumping through whose hoops? Am I jumping through her hoops or is she jumping through mine? Who's dictating the conversational topic, me or her, right? I'm leading, I'm in charge, I'm in control. This is how my conversations go.
You know,
Let's see.
what did you just came off with?
I had like a couple months, so I was like 3 months about working out. So I'm a little less.
That was the same thing. I was traveling.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I did a tour
Here's another of those humble brags.
to Europe and Canada, and then before that was like Australia. So
It's hard. It's
I
hard.
got a little pudgy. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't have access to gyms.
Yeah, well, that and you gotta really what you need to do. It's not an easy
Yeah, actually that was
constant.
the toughest one. Was like, okay, so you go to a supermarket in Sweden, you can't read any of the labels.
Oh yeah.
Like you can talk to people in the language, but you read the labels. They're not in English.
Yeah.
So I can't figure out what anything is, except for like the most basics. And the easy stuff, like basic stuff, is all like carbs. Like you can figure out what all the carbs are. Everything else you can't figure it out.
No, I
So
get that.
that's brutal. It's like some like weird like can of God knows what, or like some
Even
like
in London. I mean, the last time I was in London,
they speak English. They're Swedish.
they do. Yeah, that's true. Still, I figure out all the food all the time.
I haven't know. What is your plan for this evening right now?
Okay, the second half of this set, I'm kind of just gonna let it run. I consider just cutting it, but I'm gonna show it to you guys just because it's a good example of closing for the number in a very solid way, making actual plans as you do it, etc. So it's a very textbook example. Again, if you want more on this, go back to the first webinar on getting a solid number. I talk extensively about this stuff. But for those of you who have followed all these webinars as sort of like, a thank you to you guys and showing, rehashing the lessons and like really hammering them home for you guys, I'm just gonna like kind of play out the rest of the set. So you can see it and so you can see those lessons in action again.
What's your plan for the next
Oh,
hour?
tonight, believe it or not, I have to go home and work for like 3 hours, write a couple. Like, I'm behind on 2 that closed last week, so I'm into the night.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It's boring.
It sounds like before you do that, you should have. I'm trying to decide between smoothie or wine. You seem like you just worked out, so maybe a smoothie is the better way to go with a cute bowl.
Yeah, or like if the in between would be like organic wine.
Organic
Yeah,
wine.
Organic wine. They
You
have
help me.
it,
You help me
actually.
find some organic wine. I will share a glass of organic wine with you. I will. I have to do stuff tonight as well. I have to shoot some promo videos. So I'm getting together with my cameraman later and gonna shoot some go out in the. We're thinking about shooting something EDC, but I'm not sure if I want to go do that. We'll see. Or maybe we'll just shoot something just in Vegas in general. But yeah, I'm gonna have to figure that out. All right, anyway, I'm out of work mode. I'd rather talk to you, at least for now. Would you like to? Okay, let's do this. If we go to organic wine, can we get glasses?
Right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I want to have a glass. I want to have
I've
a.
got to leave in like 10 minutes.
Why? I feel like we'll wait a couple minutes for you. They aren't like watching their watches. You can hang out with the cute boy for half an hour and stay up a half hour later tonight.
I so wish I could. I can't.
Do you?
Yeah, I gotta go.
Are you sincere when you say that?
Oh, yeah.
In that case, let's do it another time. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So just you're just like semi self-employed. It sounds like you kind of make your own hours, but you work a lot.
I don't make my own hours. I have a job and then I do something on the side, which takes it. Yeah,
So you just work hard.
I do.
So what they say when you start your own business, they say start your business, work your own hours, work any 16 hours a day you like.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
All right. Well, in that case, I guess what part of the city do you live in? Oh, actually. You're perfect. You're near me as well. I live in. So you're like my neighbor. You're like 2 blocks away from me, probably.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do. It doesn't even have to be organic. I don't actually care. But let's do a glass of wine at some point in the near future.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
I think I would like that. You seem fun.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Gonna get out your phone since it's already out.
Okay.
I was gonna get mine out, but yours is already available and ready. You can text me.
So just notice how I'm leading the number close, how I'm setting up specific plans, how I'm qualifying her throughout all those things we talked about in the first webinar. Again, for those of you who haven't seen the first and second webinars, go watch them. You're gonna love them. For those of you who have, obviously you're seeing the lessons here just to reiterate them.
And then I'll hit you back. So what I was getting at with the schedule thing is, when are you usually free though? Because I have, well.
I mean, mostly on weekends.
Okay.
Some weeknights, but usually weekends.
Okay. We'll try to figure out something soon.
Okay.
You have to stop giving me that look. No, you literally look like the most sweet, innocent person, but then you just look very devious at times.
Oh, really?
And this is again similar to the mini cold reads. By the way, I'm going to reiterate for you guys, if you guys want to go back and practice the exercises on this, the replays for this one and for the other 2 webinars, the site for that is daygamebytodd.com. So if you go there, you can check out this replay to do those exercises again, and also the first and second webinars.
Was this phone number or name?
That is phone number.
So phone first. The usual way?
Uh-huh.
You don't have some kind of weird, exotic stripper smelling or something?
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gratuitous. Ready? This is my gratuitous.
So here I'm just joking around with her as I get the number. I put in her name with a heart and text her from her phone to my phone, that kind of stuff. So it looks as though she's really in love with me and stuff like that. And then later on, what I'm gonna do is when she says I'm the only Todd, I'm actually gonna say my last name is the only one. So that's what she's gonna giggle about there. It's just gratuitous little things. It's not the biggest deal. It's kind of cheesy actually, but you have to think when she sees the number later, when she sees the text message thread later, it's going to remind her of those moments in the interaction. It's going to make it that much more solid because she's going to remember how she felt in that moment. She's going to remember that she liked me then, et cetera, et cetera.
Aggrandizement. Okay. The real question is, do you remember my name? Oh my god. Oh, I hate it. Delete it. Just delete it. I thought what we had was real. I thought you liked me for me. I asked if it was number or name. You said number.
There you go.
Am I the only Todd in your phone, or do I have to put crazy identifying details?
You're the only Todd on my phone.
Okay. I'll put this. So I can be super cheesy.
Very cool.
Yeah. No, you seem refreshing, actually. Okay, I'm gonna go find blueberries. It was a pleasure to meet you.
You too.
I will text you later on. So you're working long tonight.
Yeah.
What does the next couple of days look like for you? If I want to do something in an evening.
Monday, Tuesday, maybe?
Monday, Tuesday?
Right, again, getting more definite plans, making the number more solid, all standard stuff, but very, very important. It's just habit for me. Like I do this every single time. It's a routine, right? But you need to develop that routine so that you're making your numbers more solid.
Remember me? I will remember you, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
You are adorable.
Thank you. Very nice meeting you.
Indeed. A pleasure. I will talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Okay, so that's another example of what a fairly solid interaction would look like all the way down to the number. And you see actually a lot of stuff towards the end is getting along the lines of actually getting to know the girl, like building a connection, exchanging some facts, finding out like we're talking with the idea that it's presumed we're gonna hang out in the future, et cetera. And this all goes towards building solid like girlfriend vibe, that kind of stuff, which is what we're gonna talk about again on that fourth webinar, which again, I encourage you guys so highly to attend. Again, first three webinars, we talked about how to get solid numbers so they don't flake, how to find the blueprint. Now we're talking about attraction tactics. The fourth webinar brings it all together. It's how A to Z, how to get a girlfriend, brings all the lessons we've learned in the first three webinars together, all in one. Plus, we have three major surprises, things you've never seen before from RSD, which I'm not gonna ruin the surprise for you right now, but trust me, you want to be on it. It's really, really amazing stuff. So you want to get on that fourth webinar ASAP. Again, Kevin, you want to give them the link, please, for those? Okay, cool. It's already up, I guess. Good. Yeah, go ahead and click there, and you can go straight over to it and get signed up so that you won't miss it when it comes live. You want to be on that one live for sure. All right. So with that said, that's kind of attraction tactics. Obviously, if you want to do the exercise again, you can watch the replays over on the replay page, which is daygamebytodd.com. Check out that fourth webinar. It's going to be amazing. Brings it all together. Plus, again, three major surprises. And with that said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been fun. Again, it's the first time that I've done these kind of interactive exercises through this format. So it was interesting for me. Hope you guys took a lot away from it. And I really appreciate you guys, being like sort of like the true fans and, coming out and following me on all these. And hopefully I provided a lot of value for you. I'm really trying to give you a lot of good stuff. All right, so I will see you guys on the next webinar. And until then, take care and go do lots of day game. Take care.